So you scoured the internet, trying to find a finished kit of these used that you could pick up, and you find nothing but disappointment. So you decide, I'm gonna have somebody build it for me. Scour the internet, disappointment. We're trying to find an authentic looking Countach replica, maybe with current technology in it. And it's just done. Turnkey, way you go. To your specs, it's done. Very difficult to find a builder to do that. And the answer to finding that builder might be quite different than what you're thinking. So for clarity, the car we're talking about is a Countach replica, probably from the 80s, the one where the fender flares we're all used to, and that authenticity is important. So proper wheelbase, proper dimensions. There are kits out there, similar to this that are most of that in there. Some of them are missing some of that in the bodies themselves and the shapes, but let's say we're not going for a stubby here. That's something on short wheelbase on a FR. We're going with something that's authentic wheelbase, full size, likely a custom tube chassis or some kind of custom chassis. Or could even be an authentically replicated chassis, but boy, you're gonna pay for something like that. What's important is it's to the specs of the stakeholders. And the stakeholders in this case would be the guy that wants to commission this build, and the people involved with building it and helping build it. So between those three, there has to be a cohesive network of, hey, we all know expectations can change based on parts availability or build time or whatever that be. You need to have some flexibilities in there, and you need to understand what those are going to be on the set point. And you have to know what your place is in not only decision making for building a car like this, but are you capable of making those decisions and working with the builder you're working with and the supplies within the network in order to build this car? The parts for this car are very difficult to find. Any of you that followed my channel for a while have seen that. Sometimes I'm waiting years to find some of these parts because I want the right ones, and I can't pay top buck, but I can pay for something that doesn't work anymore and try to fix it. Full transparency here, I am not a builder. I'm just an enthusiast. In my earliest days, when I just got my license, I turned 16, I saw a Countach go by me. I had no idea what it was, just heard it, saw it go by, and the next day I was fixated on it. Happened to run into it the very next day, sort of thing. And that was it. I was done. That was anything I ever wanted. So from that age of 16, which is a good 40 years ago, it's all I've really wanted, all right? And I knew from the get-go I was gonna have a hard time affording the original, but when I found it in Kit Car, then I knew. And I had visited, when I was in my 20s, I visited all the builders back then. I had seen a lot of kit manufacturers building Countachs in not only in the area I live in, but around in the US where I traveled. To kind of see them all was quite interesting and eye-opening to me. I realized the skills needed and even the cost of them was way out of my league. So with this video, I don't intend to try and be the expert, but I have relied on some expertise in the industry. Notably, Charlie Strickland of Strickland Racing, which I've gotten to know and watch over the years, and his expertise in car building and chassis building professionally he's been quite an advocate for our industry. Behind the scenes, he's just super active and a super trustworthy guy, and that's why I've leaned on him for some of the answers for some of these questions that we all have. Also, on the parts side of it, if you watch my videos, I've used Mav by the Horns quite a bit. A lot of the parts that I've gotten for this vehicle have come through him. And he's been important for me to kind of piece these all together. And again, he's in that kind of circle of trust for me where I know the answers that I'm getting from him, what they're based on and who they're about. And I can trust what they're saying. So they've helped with answering a lot of these questions that we have here and putting these pieces of the puzzle all together to figure out where we can find a builder. the parts that I've needed from Mav that have come from him were sourced ones that I needed for when I was trying to replicate an 88 Countach. And it was quite difficult. So I needed to wait. One thing that's been amazing of working with him for many, many, many years is how the industry has changed. Originally, we would be looking at Lamborghini and their parts spend to kind of find what we needed to build these things. Tides have turned now where people that own OEM Countaches are now coming to this industry, and guys like Mav to get quarter panels, rockers, everything you could think of for the car now, they're coming back to our industry, and we're a little more hand-built around this industry, and that's exactly what Mav's hooked up with. He's got a huge network of suppliers that basically they're craftsmen, they're actual companies, they're professional organizations that have all these parts, and with that he's created this network, and he knows exactly what you're looking for and how to find it. Thing is, it could take a little while, and that's where you need a lot of patience. Charlie is Strickland Racing. I've been watching ever since he came up with that Chupacabra thing. That thing kind of drawed me into me many years ago. Yeah, since he's been doing many Countach replicas, I know he's got a kit available, he's got chassis work. His engineering on that stuff is really fantastic. The great thing about Charlie is he keeps an eye to the builder. So he understands that we have some knowledge to put one of these together, but not all the knowledge needed to put it together. And he's able to kind of bridge that gap that a lot of us need in order to put one of these together. He's built a great chassis system that's actually could be used, modified as each of us may need as we kind of come up with our own chassis. Now, even that goes true for somebody who's going to professionally build this car for you. Charlie's the kind of guy they can lean on to kind of get all the bits and pieces in a big way, running gear, engines, transmissions, how to make it all work. He's the guy. He's a very, very good engineer, and he's been in this craft for a long time. Charlie's resources, his network, should never be underestimated. He's been doing it so long, he's got a wealth of knowledge that most of us don't have. We should talk about the lawsuits of Lamborghini and Ferrari back in, I don't know, it was the 80s, long time ago. And that was one of the things I was always worried about is could that happen again? Everybody seems to think not. I guess there's always that chance. And I have it on good authority from the team that Lamborghini actually dropped the rights to Countach many years ago. They've recently bought it back again to be able to label it with the new Countach that they've come out with. But it goes to show you that there may not be interest in any more lawsuits there. Because one of the things you start thinking about is, like I was saying earlier, if we're building parts for the original cars, because Lamborghini's not supporting them anymore, it makes it hard for them to kind of argue us if we're supporting what they won't build parts for. The other thing they make a great point is it's 20 years, the IP, there is no IP from a car, Countach in the 80s. We've gone all beyond that. I think most of us are able to identify with that. The carburetor cars, the suspension that they had was pretty unique back in the day, but we've all gotten pretty good at understanding how it all works now, and there's no IP left on a Countach, I don't think. Scope of what we're talking about here, we're working with basically being in the US. Outside of the US, UK, Canada, where I am, it's going to be a little difficult to buy a turnkey kit, say in the USA, and get it into Canada or even the UK. But anyways, it's irrelevant. In the UK, there's lots of builders, just like I'm going to talk about here. I'm focusing on mostly the US just because that's where I live close to. I'm in Canada, but the resources here for this kind of unique build are really small. So I would lean heavily on the US. So the scope of this, we're talking about a builder likely in the US that would build this for somebody in the US. The only way I'm going to get, say, if I had somebody commissioned to build this in the US and get it into Canada, is it has to be built of an age 20 years earlier. So I'm buying a 20-year-old car, and that's all I could import into Canada. And I think the rules are roughly the same around the world. So something to keep in mind, whatever I'm talking about today, you want to try and find the same thing in wherever your home country is. Now with that, I know guys like Charlie can get VIN numbers for anywhere in the world for any one of their chassis, which is how a lot of the cars get registered. So that's kind of an avenue that may work, whether or not you could still get, say, a rolling chassis and then the body on top, and you're able to import that in and then build the rest of it yourself. Those are kind of the differences from one country to another that you'll need to figure out on your own. There are just too many scenarios there. But a guy like Charlie can help with that and go a long way with it. Because Charlie at Strickland Racing has done this for a lot of his life with building a lot of the chassis he's done for racing and replicas. Now from my research, there isn't a one-stop shop to build one of these cars. Right now, the industry is pretty scattered that way. Sure, you could go to a hot rod shop and commission them to build it, but these things are really tough to build. And those parts and supply chain, a hot rod shop is kind of used to the custom. And when you're building something like this, you don't really want custom, you want authentic. And now there are builders and guys out there who can build it, but again, the cost is going way up. There's guys like Mavic by the Horns, I know, has basically assembled everything. You could replicate the original chassis, the body, and everything in between, with a V12, if that's what you want. It's gonna be very expensive, but yeah, you'll have a really authentic looking car, and it might take a real long time to do it. Charlie's kind of in the between, where he's got latest technology in a chassis to kind of quickly build the car, put all the latest and greatest gadgets in it, but still, from an interior and from an exterior, it looks like an authentic car. The engine could be a V12, could be a V8, flat plane crank. He's got lots of options there. So it really depends what you need. And I know both of these guys are working on steps to get to a turnkey facility in a well-organized way. They're not there yet, but each of them is getting closer, and each of them still works together because Mav's really the parts guy when it comes to this, and he's the go-to for the parts. Yes, when it comes to the body, chassis, and putting everything together, Strickland is really that guy. So between the two of them, yes, they're both working together. They're both trying to build a turnkey system so that we have somebody to go to. They're not there yet, but they are getting close. One of the things with a turnkey builder is to keep in mind, and in talking in my history, I've found that what I've heard in magazines and articles that only 2% of the kits have ever been built. I think that's partially because these things are super difficult to build for all the reasons I just talked about. But also, there's that cash. If you're having a builder do this, there's a cash flow system that goes with this. And in talking to the team, basically what they're saying, a lot of times what the hiccup is that you hit the wall on the cash flow and there's a pause. And then when the cash flow comes in, or you're ready to give your next installment to the builder, then they go out and find the next batch of parts. And of course, they don't always have the parts, you're waiting for the parts, and then this cycle keeps going on and on. And it's one of the reasons that these cars drag on for so long to be built. It's something to keep in mind when you're patient and make sure you have the cash to fund this to the end. What's probably gonna happen is you're gonna have an expectation of what kind of body style you want. You probably want not an 88 like this, but that's the kind of thing you're going to talk to about with the builder. And then what kind of chassis do you want? Do you want a custom chassis, something authentic and a realistic, right down to the tube chassis? Those are the discussions you're going to have with the builder. Once you know what it's going to look like on the outside, what it's going to look like as a chassis, your motor and transaxle combination, the interior. After you have all those kind of discussions with the builder, you'll be able to figure out what path you want to go down. Now, both, if you're talking to Mav by the Horns, or if you're talking to Charlie at Strickland Racing, they're both going to have suggested paths that they would say be best for you to go down to achieve what your end goal is. Each of those might be a little different based on their expertise. It's really up to you to find out which you're more comfortable with. And for the results you're trying to get, there's a price point for all of this too, and you might have to give some of that up. But after you've had that discussion and you go through those kind of cost discussions, when's the money going to be rolling in for this cash flow to keep this build going and the time frame around everything, you're going to need to probably have some flexibilities. You know, building, say, a pre-86 compared to a post-86, there may be some different parts on the interior that are easier to find or harder to find. And you might have to shift gears that way. On the exterior, you know, there's, you know, limits to that. If, you know, basically as 88, there's the anniversary model. Those are kind of some of the variations. The rest of us, I think, for the most part, are thinking, even prior to this, something pre-88 as the car of choice, which either Charlie or Mav can do. And there are other builders out there too that could probably do that. And those may be another avenue to look at. Looking at a local builder may be something to consider. One of the things when talking to Mav and Charlie about a local builder, sure, it's possible for them to do it. And it's something you can go in and check on quite frequently, which is quite an advantage to be able to do that. You know, like I was saying earlier, if the custom builder tends to want to do something custom to it, and that's not necessarily what we're going for with a replica. So that's something you can pay attention to a local builder and make sure that's not happening. At the same time, these things should not be underestimated. Most hot rod shots are doing a Camaro or a Mustang or a Challenger, you know, something like that they're rebuilding, maybe an old Caddy, you know, something like that where they're used to a parts bin or a path forward or a network of resources in order to find the parts or achieve what they want to with the car. That, when it comes to these, is not what's available. And that's what can't be underestimated about using a local shop. There is nobody that's repeatedly built Countach's over and over again. Although I've talked to Charlie and he's done a couple, he's got a couple in his queue that he's building now. And I know Mav has also got a couple that are in the queue that he's working on. So the thing is, they're out there, and the repetitive nature of doing these is going to have a huge effect on the end result of the car and the timing to get to a finished car. So if we're focused on a car like this one that's authentic, when you get into things like those wheels, you know, the windshield, the curved glass for all the side glass, really expensive. These parts will start adding up to $60,000 before you even know it. A kit, again, probably $40,000 for everything you need, all the fiberglass side of it, you know, the chassis, you know, with it. To put this together is going to take a while too. You're probably well over $60,000 just for that too. So you're now approaching something that's north of $150,000 to get something authentic like this built. And that's probably the low end of the scale. We're not all there. Most of us, once you get started with, oh, I gotta have this, oh, I gotta have that, I gotta have those wheels. Well, those wheels, 10 grand. So it's an important thing to understand and to build that it's gonna be an expensive one. And that's just it. In US dollars, that's what I've heard. Anywhere from 150 to 200,000 is kind of the bare minimum to build one of these cars. A Countach. Let's keep in mind, everybody, and in the comments, you'll see somebody typing in, you can get a real Lamborghini for less than that. That's true, but you can't get a Countach for less than that. And that's what we're talking about. It's this that we all want. It's us that grew up seeing this car, the poster car, and it's what we want. And to get it, you're going to be well over $500,000 to $1 million for the real deal. So $200,000 sounds not so bad now, does it? Now that's saying this is a new build. The car we're looking at here is definitely not. This was built in 2000. It's definitely not. It's using 2000s technology. It's got a 93 VEB motor in it, things like that. So it's even older technology and running gear that's on this. It is a tube chassis, but even with that, I've had offers for this car of about 100,000 US dollars as it stands right now. So to build a car for 150,000 brand new is a good deal. If it costs $200,000 to get, a replicated part like this, the interior replicated properly, yeah, I think that's not a bad deal. The Vette comparison is an interesting one because over many, many years that I've been following the industry, it's been kind of the toss-up, a brand new Vette or one of these. Ironically, I got one there. And, ironically, it was about the same price, sort of thing. So, yes, I've had this since 2010, but at the time, I could have bought a new Vette for the same price that I bought this. And I didn't, I bought this. And that's kind of the same benchmark now as it's always been. But what I would say is these, because the gains they've had on the OEM cars, the market has taken these up quite a bit higher as well, and the value of these cars. So it's not, right now, it's not a Stingray that we're comparing to. It's probably a Z06 that we're comparing it to. But either way, if somebody's thinking of buying one or building one, they're going to be comparing it to a Z06 of a Corvette. That gives you an idea of the market pricing for these cars and where the new one will be and what it's benchmarked against. Okay, yeah, I know. $200,000 seems like a lot of money. You could probably build something on a Fiero or a Boxster for a lot less, but in the end you have a Fiero or a Boxster that you still invested quite a bit in. But I guess that's, if it's your cup of tea and the builder's cup of tea, go for it. Now you know what it's going to cost to build something like this. Now you got to understand the time it's going to take to build one of these. From my resources, I'll say you're 3+ years to build a car start to finish. Amassing all these parts, building this car, putting it together the way you want it, it's going to be a while. And 3 years is what they say. And 3 years is a long time. And I think there's already a waiting list. So if you want one in the next 5 years, you better get your order in now. As this my aging market gets older, there's going to be more of a draw for these types of cars, which is going to take the original Countach value up and likely the replica as well. Even through COVID, we saw this car go up, where I saw it at one time prior to COVID at a value of $60,000. I've now had offers of over $100,000 US for this car. That's a lot of money and a big change in a short period of time, and it hasn't really changed much. Yes, there's going to be this generation getting older, getting more interest in this car, keep driving that market up. So finding these parts, getting these kits, it's going to get harder and harder. Both Mav and Charlie have done a great job in replicating a lot of these parts. We're not actually going to the original OEMs to get these parts. Some we still are. Some just doesn't make sense. 3D printing, things like that. You can make a lot of these parts, casting. Shifter here, this is a replica. But I tell you to look at it, Mavs does such a great job, you can't really tell that it's a replica piece. Same with the HVAC. That was a broken system out of a Diablo. Works. So their gauge packages has all been replicated, and the clusters and things like that in my car all been replicated. So the switch gear on some of the other different models is much easier to get than what this 88 is. So those are the things you need to all keep in mind when you're building your car. My question would be, what parts are most available? What year car is best to replicate based on the parts availability? I think that's the way to go and the way I would go. That might change from time to time based on certain parts and batches of parts that are available. So I think, that's probably, if I was going to go and commission a build, it's probably the way I'd go about it. Maybe if a Corvette went by that day, I would have bought a Corvette, but it didn't. A Countach did. And I got fixated on this, and the day came when I had a choice, I bought this. Don't regret it now. One thing's for sure, having the Vette over having this. You go to any show, stop at any gas station, this thing gets a lot more attention even than that car. It is amazing how many people flock to this car, how many talk about the poster. It's quite an attraction. And I love it for that. And I tell you, when I'm sitting here in the garage doing this, shooting a video, sitting in the seat, it's all good for me. I don't have to be driving it. Just looking at it in the garage is fantastic. Looking at the work I've done to it to make it more and more authentic over the years, been great. Then maybe that's another avenue. You know, you get a partial build or something like that. And the bits and pieces you're comfortable with, you do. That's always something you can do if you have that relationship. Anyways, I'm going to just enjoy this for a little while longer. And I'll see you guys later.